everybody. My name is Sandhya Kanade. I'm a practicing internist who is working in hospital medicine in the US. I would like to thank Dr. Ana Moreira and the Portuguese Society for Integrative Medicine for inviting me to this conference and to be able to share my experience in this topic that I'm going to speak on at this third National Congress of Integrative Medicine. So as you can tell, my topic today will be on Vedic chanting and its role in health and wellness. The agenda for this session will begin with sharing of my personal experience, and then I will move on to say, why do we need chanting? What exactly are the Vedic chants? Do they fit into the integrative principles so that we may adapt or adopt this? What does literature say about the effects of the Vedic chants on the human body? What's the evidence behind it? What are its uses in medicine? And what are the future directions? So stay with me. So why do we even need to chant? We need to have a background to this process. So as we all know, the current world situation is in such a shape that there's so much turmoil, uncertainty, and fear, which has gotten worse with the onset of the pandemic. At an individual level, we see that more and more people are me-centered, and there's a sense of lack of purpose, unhappiness, and dissatisfaction and boredom resulting from that. And to move away from that and to actually have some satisfaction in life, peace of mind in life, one needs to quieten the mind, start exploring inwards, and contemplate so that one may achieve peace, happiness, and be at ease, which would mean lack of ease is disease. So once you're at ease, you have health and happiness. And therefore, the search for a tool, which is simple enough, that will help us to get beyond the sensory input that we are overloaded with. There's so much of sensory overload, information overload from the social media, television, etc., and that's perpetuating negativity. So we need a tool, and which is simple enough, which qualifies as a good tool and a simple tool, and enables us to move into a peaceful frame of mind. We also do know that inviting spirituality in our lives does give peace of mind and happiness, and studies have shown that it improves health outcomes. So I think it's a good idea for us to get a tool which has a spiritual basis. And one of the ways of healing is sound-based healing. So the sound, as we know, affects the health of the mind and the body. It has its pride of place in Sanatana Dharma, which is a Vedic period in India. So Sanatana Dharma is a precursor of the religion Hinduism, and it was a way of living. At that time, it wasn't a religion, and it was there practiced in ancient India. And so sound had an important place in healing, and it's very, very spiritual in nature as well. And so I opted to choose the chants from the Vedic period as a tool to help bring about peace of mind, happiness, joy in people's lives, and therefore help improve health and promote healing. So what are the Vedic chants? The Vedas are the foundational reference literature from this Vedic period. It is a vast body of knowledge which deals with all aspects of life, whether it be physical, psychological, or spiritual. It was handed down from generation to generation in the form of chanting, and in Sanskrit, this is called mantras. So it was handed down through the generational period in the form of chanting. It wasn't actually written in the beginning, because there are a lot of things that we need to remember about chanting, and I'll come to it later. The characteristics of the sound played a very major role, and it was very important to chant it in a precise way so that the benefits are obtained, and therefore the need for oral transmission and not in the form of writing. So, chanting is a form of focused attention meditation. It's a kind of meditation where you focus your entire attention on the chanting itself, and that becomes a way of meditating because the mind has a one pointed focus at this time. And this mantra based meditation is a good process of quieting and focusing the mind using the sound or the word or a phrase or an entire mantra, which could be 4 lines, many multiple lines, etc. It's either recited aloud or it could be chanted silently, repetitively. The effect is the same. It brings about a restful alertness, and there's a certain kind of vibration that is associated with it, which helps release energy that is stuck in the body. And it's believed that the stuck energy is the one that's responsible for disease. So when you release the stuck energy, you promote healing or you cure the disease. So before we go into the details, I want to make sure that Vedic chanting fits the principles of integrative medicine. So it does take into account all the factors that influence health, well-being, and illness, such as the mind, spirit, and the community. It facilitates body's innate healing response, and it's not at all invasive. You don't have to do any kind of procedure to be using this tool. And what's more, it's a new paradigm with the evidence base slowly building up. People knew about Vedic chanting in ancient India and in India right now, but this is new knowledge to the Western world. And so this is a new paradigm that we are going to be engaging in. And of course, it promotes health. So therefore, it fits into the principles of integrative medicine. I wanted to leave this link for you to listen to this chant. It's a beautiful chanting by the European Veda Union. And I wanted this particular piece because I wanted people to know that it's possible for non-Indians who are not comfortable with Sanskritam or the culture to be able to learn and chant. So what are these Vedic mantras? The word mantra is a Sanskrit word, which is a definite structure of syllables and vowels in a particular way, such that it works as a spiritual tool. And it helps liberate the mind from ignorance, delusion, and illusion. So in Vedic literature, there are various mantras that are chanted, and each mantra has a different purpose. This has been described in the Vedas. So there is, for example, there is a mantra. If you wanted to invoke rain, there's been drought and you want to invoke rain, there's a mantra for it. There's a mantra for healing. There's even a mantra for annihilation of microbes, which we started to chant when the pandemic began. And all this is described in Vedic literature. There's a treatise for this called Charaka Samhita. He was responsible for putting all this together. So it can either be sung, spoken, or thought internally. And according to the Vedas, there are 4 natural progressive stages to the sound itself, manifestation of sound. The first level is the sound as manifested in speech while I'm talking to you or we are talking to each other. The next level is when it's whispered. That carries a different vibration. Then the silent repetition of the mantra that's the next stage, and it carries a different vibration altogether. And when one becomes well versed in chanting, we move on from loud chanting to reducing the volume, and then slowly we start to chant in our mind, mentally. It becomes automatic. And you start to chant the mantra, and you become the mantra yourself. So that we need to understand that part, and that carries a different vibrational character altogether. And it is postulated that when one goes through these various stages, the intensity and the frequency of sound changes, and it synchronizes with the sympathetic nervous system of the meditator or the chanter. So there are certain rules to follow while you're chanting. It cannot be a random chanting. It needs to be performed in a quiet, relaxed environment without any disturbance. It could be chanted for any period of time. And the goal is to calm and focus the body and the mind without having to put in intense effort. and it produces a steady cadence to the breath. So the basic mantra that we know of is that two-letter word called Om. Actually, in Sanskritam, it's not just two letters. It actually carries three letters and a fourth character, and then there is silence. There are five components to that whole thing. It's chanted like Om. I want you to remember this humming that I'm doing at the very end, and I'll talk more about it later. So when one chants Om, the respiration slows down, it improves concentration, and there's a sense of calmness that pervades. The traditional uses of chanting, there are many uses of chanting, and the traditional uses were that it was used during delivery and childbirth. It was used as a rejuvenation um, cures. It was used to treat poisonous stings and bites, treating mental disorders attributed to demonic possession. It was used to enhance the effect of the medication that was given to cure or stabilize chronic conditions. And in fact, there is a mention made of using mantras when they're harvesting medicinal plants to increase their potency, as well as using these mantras to protect the medicinal plants from natural dangers. What are the chanting indications, the traditional indications? It was used in Vedic times to reduce anxiety and depression, to release neurosis, to soothe the senses. And when one chanted, it was found that they became more calm, more compassionate. The immunity of the body was improved. There was intuitive capabilities that started opening up, and there was more radiance and empowerment. All very enticing, right? So is there a difference between chanting, doing these Vedic chants, and simple prayers? And the answer to that question is yes, there is, because it's been found that adding sound or chanting amplifies the power of our prayers, because there's a positive intentionalization and internalization of the sound. So it opens up new neural connections with vocal harmonics. So it's best to do the chanting, do the prayers as a form of chanting. And it's also found that these harmonics improve and heighten consciousness. So chanting these mantras is designed, each mantra, the way you chant it is designed in such a way that they contain the essence of the music of the mantra or the tone of that mantra latently. They also contain each mantra, because I said that each mantra is specific, it is dedicated to a particular archetype, or in those days, they used to call each archetype a god. They used to give it a name. Sanatana Dharma allowed for people to practice their spirituality in a way that they were able to visualize these gods in whatever form they wanted, give it whatever name they wanted. So there's a multitude of these gods or archetypes, and each mantra was associated with this particular character or value, human value or ethical value. And so when it was chanted, the mantras contain the life sustaining energies um, uh, that these mantras carried or originated from. For example, the Gayatri mantra is invoked for the supreme effulgence or the sun. So it carries the energizing power of the sun itself. So let me talk briefly about the two or three common Vedic chants. One is, of course, the Om chanting. I just chanted that briefly for you. Om is a cosmic sound which has harmonizing effects. It is said that when astrophysicists detected this primordial sound of the universe, the original primordial sound of the universe, it sounded like Om. And the vibration of Om is at the same frequency as that of nature. So it's very harmonious, as you can see. And what it does is when one chants Om, it's said that it deactivates the orbitofrontal cortex and certain areas of the brain that carry a specific function for regulating emotions, memory, and survival instincts. So this has been found based on functional MRI studies on people that have chanted Om. So another familiar mantra is the Gayatri mantra. And like I said, Gayatri mantra is dedicated to the supreme effulgence or the sun. So it's the oldest hymn in Vedic literature. And it's a standard one. It's been validated and it's an empowerment tool for providing or producing a behavioral change such that it leads to a healthy lifestyle. So this is the mantra of physical, emotional, mental healing and spiritual awakening as well. So it has 24 letters and each letter provides a subtle energy field and magnetic field for the person who is chanting. So we all know in Ayurveda, the human body or the human being is considered to consist not just of the physical body, there's the energy body, there are the various other bodies or sheaths, and disease occurs when any of these sheaths or these bodies are affected, not just the physical body. And so when we chant the Gayatri mantra, it's been found that this field that is created around us, we all have an energy field, electromagnetic field around us. It enhances this field. So it has a power to stimulate the power centers in the subtle body, subliminal power centers in the body. And when we chant the Gayatri mantra, at the end, there is the sound of that hum. And it's been found, there is evidence, and it's been proven that it boosts the production of nitric oxide in the body. And nitric oxide is an important regulator and mediator of several processes in the nervous system, immune system, and cardiovascular system. When the amount of nitric oxide in the body increases, it relaxes the vascular smooth muscle, thereby causing a dilation of the blood vessel, and it increases the blood flow. So this is the scientific basis of the effect of Gayatri mantra. The third mantra that I want to talk about are these seed mantras. In Sanskritam, the word for seed is bija. So seed mantras are just letters, one or two letters, that is it. And these are the shortest forms of a mantra. So it's called bija mantra because when you just sow or when you chant it, the effects sprout like a plant and then becomes a tree. So these are the seed mantras, and they work at the chakra level. In Ayurveda, again, like I said, one of the concepts is that we all have energy centers or energy bodies called chakras. These are wheels that are spinning, and they regulate the function of different areas of the body. We have 7 chakras in our physical body, And these are not anatomical structures that you can see on a CAT scan or something, but they are present not in the physical body, but in the energy body. And these chakras coordinate the function of the physical, the organs and organ systems of the physical body. And the healing effects of the chanting of these seed mantras is due to the balancing and alignment of these chakras. So these are the three different ones that most people are familiar with. There are several other mantras, and it's beyond the scope of this talk to be talking about all the effects and benefits of other mantras. So Vedic knowledge was not just pertaining to the mantras and the effect they had, what kind of power they had, what purpose they needed to be used. They also knew that if you chant the mantra along with a fire ceremony called yajna, it has additive effects on people and on the environment as well. And this was ancient Vedic knowledge. They knew, and that is what they knew, that they could invoke rain when there is drought by chanting certain kind of mantras. And there is even this specific term, yajna technology. So they knew how to perform these fire ceremonies, and there are various varieties of it for different purposes. And this was a means of achieving the best and the highest in all types of human endeavor, because when they did the chanting as a group and performed this fire ceremony, not only did the individual benefit, but the whole world and the environment benefited from it. So this is a ancient yajna technology. And it's all mentioned and documented in the Vedic literature in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And what we have been finding recently is that when such a fire ceremony is performed, the change in the environment that is induced can be measured using random event generator, or REG in short. So the collective consciousness of the group chanting enhances this measurement, and add to that the fire ceremony, it increases the power even more. So what are the other considerations to take into account when we talk about the Vedic chanting? I think I mentioned previously how important it is to pronounce the vowels and the consonants correctly, because faulty pronunciation gives rise to a different meaning altogether, and it may be ineffective. And it's important to chant with faith and belief and intention for the desired beneficial effects. One needs to follow strict phonetic guidelines. And these guidelines, surprisingly, phonetic guidelines are present in another treatise in the Vedic literature. And it tells us how each vowel and consonant needs to be chanted. What's the right pitch? What's the right sound? And it talks about 6 parameters that control this precision in chanting. That those 6 parameters are appropriate articulation of alphabets, using the right tone, using the right duration of pronunciation. How much force do you use when you are chanting that syllable or the word or the letter? And it's important to chant at the right speed, not too fast, not too slow. There should be no breaks. There are certain points where you can break and take a breath, but where it's not meant to be taken, it needs to be chanted straight through. And there needs to be a correct combination and juxtaposition of sounds. And all this is doable. The reason I'm mentioning it is it's so ancient, and they knew, their knowledge was so advanced. But when you start learning this, it follows automatically. It comes. So having said all that I needed to say about Vedic chanting from the Vedic times, let me move on to show you how relevant is it in this modern day and age. I'm going to change the gear now, and let me talk about modern science and where we are headed. It's a very interesting period in our lives, because until recently, it was believed that everything in creation and universe is based on matter, consists of matter. But now quantum science is showing us that this is not true. Quantum physics says everything is consciousness based. That's the commonality that we all share. And this whole universe is a beautiful, living, intelligent, interconnected system, which means all of us are interconnected. It's just that we don't know and we are not aware of it. And we know that when one chants or even thinks about a mantra, it produces certain vibrations. Not only do these vibrations have a soothing and a stimulative effect, these vibrations reverberate and spread out into the universe as energy waves and surround the atmosphere. And therefore, it's not the individual, but the group and the population around in that area that gets benefited. And as I mentioned before, we have this random event generator that measures the effect on the field of consciousness. So it's not just ancient knowledge, but we are able to prove that this effect exists. And like I said before, group activity is much more powerful than individual activity. So I'll move on to showing you some evidence in the modern world as to the beneficial effects of chanting. This study from Australia showed the benefit of chanting Om. It showed that those who chanted had more positive affect and altruism. And it didn't matter whether they chanted aloud or they chanted silently. This study, and I have, you have the bibliography. If you wanted more details, you could go into them. This is this study that was done on the power of Gayatri Mantra, and it was studied in athletes in India. The goal was to see if chanting Gayatri Mantra improved the attention memory in the athletes and improved their mental state and decreased their anxiety. And it did prove that, and it was a significant effect. Similar studies were found when they studied the effect of Gayatri Mantra in children. So what about healthcare? So we do have studies of chanting, mantra chanting in healthcare field as well. This study was done in San Diego at the VA, and they found the effects or the beneficial effects of chanting the Maha Mantra on the stress levels on a group of healthcare workers. And we all know that healthcare workers are in a lot of stress most of the time. The situation is very stressful. The greater the stress, the greater is the risk of disease and adverse outcomes, health outcomes. And therefore, this group decided to see if chanting mantras helped reduce the stress levels. And they did demonstrate that by showing that the stress hormone, which is cortisol, is reduced. The auditory and visual reaction time was reduced, and the parasympathetic tone was increased. So, which means that led to a drop in the heart rate in nursing professionals. And the implications of chanting are quite clear. Repetitive chanting could be used as an innovative way of reducing stress. It is portable because there's no machinery that is involved, and it's easy to implement, and it's inexpensive. What's more, these nurses didn't really have to stop what they were doing. They started focusing on the mantra when they were between tasks. So it is a very strong evidence for mantra chanting in the healthcare field. Next, the very same group at the VA in San Diego went on to study the effects of chanting in HIV positive volunteers. So they taught them how to chant the mantra, and then divided them into groups, and found that those that chanted the mantra had less intrusive thoughts, less anxiety. As it is, you do know that HIV positivity induces a sense of anxiety. They feel that they do not belong to the society, so they have an existential crisis. So all those aspects improved. Their spiritual faith improved. They had more peace, and there was more meaning in their lives. So the psychological distress that adult patients with HIV undergo was affected, and it showed that we could improve and have a positive impact on that. So not to let go of this, some researchers in India studied its effects on autism. Um, Autism is the autism spectrum disorder has been found to be associated with 5-HTT, the serotonin gene polymorphism. It affects behavior and social communication in the kids. So in India, there are constraints in terms of management because the awareness of this condition is not so good, and there are very few practitioners who are trained to treat children with autism. So they tried to see if there were other modalities that could be used to improve the behavior and social communication. And what they did was they had them listen to the mantras that was being chanted by an experienced chanter or meditator. And this was done for a specific period of time at a specific time in a closed room. And they demonstrated that there was a reduction in the hyperactivity, self-biting, head nodding, hand flapping. And they also checked endocrine profiles, and they found that they were altered as well. But this was a very small study of 15 children. So what about the effect of chanting in medical students and paramedical students? And we all know going through med school is very stressful. So are the paramedical sciences and training programs. So they taught these people to chant Om and do a certain kind of breathing technique called pranayama. And it was found that the perceived stress levels improved, the respiratory rate and heart rate dropped, the systolic and diastolic blood pressures also improved. So there you go. It's a non-medicative, non-pharmacological way of improving stress levels in people in training. And the same thing was studied in a group of students, not necessarily paramedical students or medical students, but here what they did was they saw if there was an effect or benefit if this was done in the mind, and if the chanting was integrated or synchronized with breathing. So all they had to do was chant the mantra Soham or Hamsa, and the word So was to be chanted with in-breath or inhalation, and the hum was to be chanted with exhalation. For example, So hum. So I'm not able to demonstrate both breathing and chanting, but I want you to be able to imagine that. So when this was done, when students were taught this method of chantless meditation or ajapa japa, where the mantra is chanted silently, and one could do it anywhere. Say you're on a flight or you are traveling, you could still do this. And it was found that the stress levels were reduced. There was more peace and happiness and positivity. The self-esteem improved, mental status improved, and there was more coordination between the body and the mind. So the Mahesh Yogi group from California tried to compare just plain and simple transcendental meditation with the effect or the power of the Vedic chants. And they actually found that when people chanted, their theta 2 level activity and alpha activity in the frontal parietal lobes improved, and there was more coherence between these lobes with Vedic chanting. So what does this do? it induces a sense of inner calm, and this is a very deep inner experience, and the consciousness and mental state improves. So definitely chanting is more beneficial than meditation or meditation alone. And it could be, and in like in the study, they didn't have to chant, they just had to listen to it. So moving on from the evidence base to its uses, biophysics is a relatively new field, and there are various ways to chant the effects of chanting on the body. So we all know that, or many people know that physical body is surrounded by an electromagnetic field, and now we have the capability of measuring this electromagnetic field. And this is linked, the electromagnetic field of the individual is associated with the health status or emotional state, mental state of the person as a whole. And we need very fine instruments to detect this, and we already have this. It can be, the aura can be measured with Kirlian photography, and and it can also be detected. Actually, the vibrations can be picked up on equipment such as antenna that can. And what it does is this. The vibrations from a person that is chanting has been picked up by the antenna that has been developed in Bangalore, India, and they have used it to augment that energy, convert it from speech to a higher energy than speech signal and augment it. And they've started to see if this can be, this energy can then be transmitted to people having certain disease conditions or deficiencies. So this is in its infancy, and this is a very exciting field to be in. So what are the future directions? I've showed you some of these studies, but these are all small studies. We need larger randomized controlled trials, comparative trials that will show the benefit. And if we can find other ways of measuring the benefit, that would be helpful. We also need studies to establish what type of mantra to use, how long does it need to be used for beneficial effect to be apparent. And we need to see what these amplifiers can do. Can we use recorded systems and amplify that, and in what kind of diseases can it be used? Again, it becomes a non-invasive way of healing. And we need to see if the electromagnetic field measurement can be measured in other ways, and there's more availability and acceptability of this measurement. So I know I have shared a lot of information, but I want you to take home these pearls. If you don't remember anything else, this is what I want you to go home with, so you can review stuff on your own and come to your own conclusions. So the Vedic chants are time-tested, ancient, they're non-religious, non-denominational. There is free access to learning and listening these chantings on the internet. There are online tutors, translated versions, and know that this is a form of sound healing. Okay. It's very easy to incorporate in daily life. The benefits can be accrued either by listening or by chanting. And when you combine it with meditation, there are additional benefits. So what does chanting, the Vedic chanting, do? It helps calm the mind, slow down the cardiorespiratory system, and it also has its beneficial effects on the immune system. And it helps learning, it helps memory and creativity, and provides clarity of thought so that we can make decisions in a better way. And I'm also going to screen this bibliography or references for your perusal. There's lots and lots of papers that support Vedic chanting. Yeah. And since this is an online conference, I understand that it's difficult to ask questions, but I'm happy if the organizers can direct those questions to me via email, and I would be happy to answer them to the best possible ability. So namaste and thank you.